Gah! He's too tough to defeat. You know what this means?
Exactly. It's time for...
Please don't say Super Duper MacAlistair 4.
No, I wasn't gonna say that.
We're gonna have to fuse together. Are you ready?
If there's no other way to defeat him, then I guess so. You sure you don't want me to take my shirt off?
Just do the damn dance. Fusion. Ha! Aha! Now fear the might of Satsu. Maxunami? We'll work on the name later. Welcome to Dragon Ball Month. Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode of Dragon Ball Month. My name is Satsunami and joining me on this fusion adventure is none other than the one and only champion himself, Martin MacAlistair. Martin, welcome back.
Thank you for having me on to talk about not a culinary fusion this time, but a Dragon Ball fusion.
And what a fusion it is. Thank you all for listening. No, I'm kidding. We can't get out of the episode that easy, unfortunately. So last week we discussed the iconic imagery of the Dragon Ball transformations. Now this week we are toning it down a bit because our amazing Pandalorians decided that we should watch this film to review. So why do you hate it? No, I'm kidding.
At least he's short.
Well, actually, true. So I put out a poll on Twitter/X where I was saying, what film do you want us to watch? And I chose between, quite honestly, a variety. So I had Lord Slug there. There was no love for Lord Slug, unfortunately. I put The Revenge of Cooler, which I think got a little bit of love, I want to say. There was Fusion Reborn, of course, which is why we're here today. And then there was also the Broly movie, which I think came second, surprisingly. But before we go into talking about Fusion Reborn and this very iconic film, what is your history with the films themselves?
Yeah, so I vaguely mentioned it, I alluded to it in the last episode, but when we reached teenage years, the internet was getting more and more prevalent, and what was happening was there was a lot less copyright on the internet as there was now.
Ah, the good old days.
The good old days. Everything was free. Just incriminated myself there, cut that. No, don't know. Everything was available on things like YouTube, obviously, Dailymotion, and then there was Google had their own service called, like, was it just Google Video, I think, at the time?
Yeah, something like that. Now it's called YouTube.
Now all three of them are called YouTube, I think. Back in the day, before they'd figured out copyright, all the movies were sort of available across these platforms, split up into lots of parts in awful quality, and that's kind of how I watched all the Dragon Ball movies. I think maybe I should probably go buy some of them now, but that was how I watched them all when I was younger. And the Dragon Ball Z movies in particular are quite funny because they cover things that would never cover in the show. This movie in particular, I think I want to talk about this in a bit more detail later, but this movie was one that I think everyone sought out because this particular fusion at the end of this movie was such a big deal. So that's kind of my history with the movies. What about you?
Yeah, I think I was probably the same because do you remember on YouTube there would always be that one channel that would split the movies?
Yeah.
And by movies, I mean anime movies for legal reasons there. But you know, it would be like to avoid when YouTube were cracking down on the kind of copyright, they would have a huge picture of the anime that you were watching and then have the actual videos like a tiny box in the corner. And it'd be like part 1, part 2.
It was also mirrored. They like to flip things.
Oh,
that was avoiding the algorithm for a while.
Before the computers got smart. Yeah, I kind of caught clips of it, I have to say, online because I genuinely don't think, and again, this is our kind of experience as opposed to the rest of the world, but we didn't really get them in cinemas, did we?
No, certainly not until the newest Broly movie have I ever thought we've seen any or been aware of any Dragon Ball movies in cinema. I think you actually sent me a clip from Wikipedia, or sorry, a segment from Wikipedia that was to do with these movies getting any kind of international release, and it was like the mid-noughties by the time they actually came over here, and they were coupled with other movies and box sets and stuff. So as far as I'm aware, it wasn't really, maybe Resurrection of F might have been in the cinema for like a day or something, but certainly nothing from the Z era. Because
this is something else that I brought up to you when we were talking about, of course, the iconic opening Rock the Dragon, and most of the clips from that are all from different Dragon Ball Z films. You know, you've got clips from the Tree of Might, from the World's Strongest, from, I think, Dead Zone was the other one. It was all clips from that. that, but, you know, when you actually watch the show, none of them were there. You're like, what the hell's going on? So yeah, it wasn't really great, but something that I found interesting, and as you were saying there, I'm sure this was the first, at least in America, that got a limited theatre release.
Wild.
It is a weird film to lead off with, because you would think it would be something like Broly or The Revenge of Cooler or, okay, maybe not Lord Slug, but...
My man.
Yeah, it's really strange. And there was a video, I can't remember the name of the guy, so I apologise, but there was like a video on YouTube of a guy who was going through every single film, debunking how they couldn't be part of the timeline of Dragon Ball Z. It's weird that these films live in a kind of own bubble, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a wee segue story, but me and you, we went to go see the first two My Hero Academia movies in cinemas. They came out, so two separate films. They were kind of made by the same writer that did the show, and his concept was like, it was really nice to reward viewers with something they wouldn't get a chance to see in the show. So like a little bit of fan service, but structure it in the sake of a movie. And so it's two events happen across those two films that are like fan moments, if you know what I mean, like, but they'll never happen in the actual show. I mean, I think the Dragon Ball movies kind of flutter between that. This one in particular covers that. My Hero Academia ones fit vaguely within the canon. There's obviously some kind of time wibble wobbleness, but it vaguely fits within the canon. Well, these are just, they'll be in the middle of another arc, and all of a sudden, you know, something else is going on. I was actually looking on the wiki for this film, and there's like 8 potential places this film could happen, but there's always something wrong in each of them. It's dead funny. So it's like, they just went, we'll just try our best and make it fit.
What I also find hilarious when I was doing the research is, if you look this up in Google, the first search from Reddit is Fusion Reborn is not a good movie. And that is just hilarious to me, thinking that someone out there was like, I really wanted a good movie, but I don't know why.
I have a question for you.
Oh, do tell.
What's the cut-off for this being a movie? Right, because this is 51 minutes long, including credits. So this must be about 45 minutes. This is a double, maybe a triple episode if you're counting the shorter Dragon Ball episodes, but this is a short movie.
Do you know what's even wilder? The fact that I've recorded Chatsunami episodes that are longer than this film.
Yeah.
That's even with me editing it down and everything. So it's absolutely wild, because I'm actually surprised that this wasn't counted as a TV film.
Yeah, TV special or something.
Yeah, because I say that because they do have a lot of Dragon Ball, maybe not as much as the films, but they do have a lot of TV specials that they very much emphasise that it's a TV special. For example, the Trunks backstory one, I think that was a TV special.
TV special.
Yeah, that's not a film, but it really should be, because it's such a great story. Whereas, do you know what this is? This is the anime equivalent of this could have been an email. This literally could have been an arc, or even a filler arc or something. Because even in GT, they have it's like a film at the end of the series where it's like Goku's great whatever grandson, and he's trying to find the Dragon Balls to rescue Pan and everything. I mean, that was interesting. I really enjoyed that for what it was, but why is this considered a film?
I don't know what the word movie means. I'm going to be honest, right? That sounds stupid to say out loud, but is it just because it made it into the cinema? Is that what it is? I don't know. I don't have an answer. But it's just a baffling thing that a film is 50 minutes long.
You know, I'm totally not Googling what qualifies a film.
Yeah, what is a movie? What is a film?
Oh, interesting. And this is my thorough research here.
I love this.
According to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the American Film Institute and the British Film Institute, a feature film runs for more than 40 minutes, while the Screen Actors Guild asserts that a feature's running time is 60 minutes or longer.
So that's why it didn't win any awards from the Screen Actors Guild.
Well, there's many reasons it didn't win.
So that's why it didn't win any awards from the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, let's go with that cover story. Is it because Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit came in?
I love that meme.
Oh, I love that. For anyone who doesn't know, a Wallace and Gromit film bet a Studio Ghibli film, and it will never not be funny. Was it Howl's Moving Castle?
I want to say Howl's, yeah.
I'm sure it was. Purely because I think the year before he was protesting because of the Iraq war. went in the next year and he got bet out by Wallace and Gromit. I thought it was hilarious. Anyway, yeah, they got into the technicality, we can safely say, but will we get into this film?
Let's get into it.
And without any further ado, we're away to fuse together and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome to Shatsunami, a variety podcast that discusses topics from gaming and films to anime and general interests.
Previously on Chatsunami, we've analysed what makes a good horror game, conducted a retrospective on Pierce Brosnan's run as James Bond, and listened to us take deep dives into both the Sonic and Halo franchises.
Also, if you're an anime fan, then don't forget to check us out on our sub-series, Chatsunani, where we dive into the world of anime. So far, we've reviewed things like Death Note, Princess Mononoke, and the hit Beyblade series.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, then you can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and all good podcast apps.
As always, stay safe,
Stay awesome, and most importantly,
Stay hydrated.
Hello, we are Two Girls, One Reusable Cup, a podcast all about living a low-waste lifestyle in your 20s, hosted by Beth and Marie. We are just your average consumer trying to make the best decisions for people and planet. And we mess up. A lot.
And the next morning had a massive hangover and I was like, where's my reusable straw? No, my prized possession.
You know, toothpaste is like one of the jumping off points of this podcast, and it also was one of the jumping off points of my very large dentist bill.
And they put it in just standard plastic cup with a plastic lid. But don't worry, folks, they put a paper straw in it, which I think I slurped twice and then it disintegrated.
Wait, you've never learned how to ride a bike?
So kudos to my dad, he tried to teach me and I was just a pain.
I love how unforgiving you are of the fact that this was 1,800 metres above sea level. But where was my quiche?
Grab a cup of tea, sit down with us, and come and join the Sustainable Support Group.
Well, that fusion didn't last long, did it? Anyway, Fusion Reborn, which is the 12th film of the... Well, I would have said 12 out of 13, but I don't know if that includes the Dragon Ball films on top of the Dragon Ball Z films.
No idea.
No idea. Not a clue. I'm not as much of a nerd as I thought I was. I'm so sorry.
Should be ashamed.
Anyway, that's the end of the episode, if you'd like.
No, hold on, slow down. Before we continue. Satsu, would you like to recap the plot of this film? Because I was so sure you were about to ask me to do it.
Oh, no. Dragon Ball Fusion Reborn is a geopolitical thriller that spans across two worlds. I don't know why this film was made, but it spoke to me. It spoke to me on a spiritual level. It was very transcendent. It made me cry.
Yep.
It was magical. It's like, you know those weird films that Emma Stone keeps doing recently? It's like that, but for anime, it's just, you don't know what's going on. You don't know why.
It's just mad that this is your exact review for Pan's Labyrinth.
Well, that is true, yeah. I've got my hands up with the eyes on it and everything. Anyway, next week, Pan's Labyrinth. No, in all seriousness, it's supposed to take place, again, it's all muddled because it's supposed to take place during the Boo saga, but that doesn't make sense and whatnot. Let's not get bogged down in the technicalities of that. But basically, it revolves around a spiritual Amazon warehouse issue where something blows up, a lot of spiritual dimensions get trapped in jelly beans, so they send Goku and his goat of the afterlife, Pycon, amazing character, they send them to fix the issue. They have to fight a big jelly bean baby who turns into a stabby baby, and then he meets Vegeta to fight him. And while all of this is going on, hell opens up and all of these cool previous villains pop out and they get dealt with in like 2 seconds, including, and it's all of the old movie villains. So you've got the henchman for Cooler, you've got Frieza, you've got Bojack. What's interesting, and I don't know how true this is because I didn't examine every frame here, but apparently Cooler is on the poster for this film, but he's not in the actual film. So I don't know how much false advertising that constitutes as, but yeah, so hell breaks loose and you think, oh, that's a cool B-plot, you know, where's that going to go? Gets solved in 2 minutes. And then they replace it with, and I'm saying this, right, to both not incriminate ourselves, but also for, you know, family-friendly purposes, the bad mustache man man of the 40s comes on this film.
According to Wikipedia, he is referred to as the dictator. So obviously Charlie Chaplin fans.
Did you also know that this film was banned in several countries because of this character?
I am unsurprised to hear that.
In fact, they went as far as to actually censor those scenes.
The runtime of that film must have been like 30 minutes in those countries.
And that's the thing though, you wouldn't have missed anything.
No.
We'll get on to him later. So yeah, you've got a B-plot of Goten and Trunks fighting Mustache Man. And then, as you said, you get the cool fusion at the end where Vegeta and Goku are fighting Stabby Baby in the afterlife. And then everything goes back to normal. They win the day. Apologies, it's spoilers, but you know what? It's 50 minutes if you haven't watched it by now.
Pause, go watch it now.
You could genuinely spend more time in a Chatsunami episode. What are you doing? Anyway, would you think that's a succinct summary?
I do. For me personally, I think the way we tackle this is we start with the C plot, go to the B plot, and then go to the A plot.
Let me guess, is the C plot Mr. Satan fighting zombies?
No, I actually forgot about that. Let's start with the D plot, we'll go to the His scene's probably one of the best scenes in the film, actually.
I do love that where he's like, oh, no one can see me fight these guys that I can manage. Let me go to, a more...
Let's go find some cameras.
Yeah, oh, it's so funny. That's his only bit in the film, but it's so good. But yeah, sorry, what was the C plot?
Basically, you vaguely mentioned it, but Gohan, I want to just talk about this because it's so weird, and obviously in light of what happens in Super with Frieza coming back. But we have this scene where Gohan and Videl go out to save everyone, and they confront Frieza. Gohan flies through them all and punches Frieza in the stomach, beats him in one hit, and then that's them. That's them done for the film. We don't see the two of them again.
No, you see them at the end, though.
Yeah, so I was going to say, there's a joke at the end, which I want to bring this up because I did want to save this to the end, but I'm just bringing it up now so we hear. There's a joke at the end that Goten and Trunks saw them kissing during this apocalypse, and that's what they're all laughing about. That was it. He went and punched Frieza in the stomach and then made it with his girlfriend while the world was ending.
What a Chad.
I was going to say, kind of an amazing time. He had the best 50 minutes of anyone.
Jesus, how long was that kiss?
Everyone else was fighting for their lives, and he's like, nah, I got better things to do. I'm going to bring this up a couple of times during this film. I know it's a shonen, and I know it's a shonen movie. We don't talk about consequences in shonen, but like seeing the man that murdered people in front of you when you were 4 years old again and having to fight him feels like that deserves a little bit of follow-up, and not just that was it. And he punches him in the stomach and that's the end of that, and we don't see Gohan again now. It's so weird.
Yeah, and that's the thing though. There's hundreds of different past villains there as well. It's a bit similar to what GT did. There was that arc where everyone from Hell escaped, more or less. There was Nappa, and Goku was trapped with Frieza and Cell and Hell, but they did kind of something similar. So, they took that a whole lot more seriously than just, this is a guy who killed my best friend and pushed my dad to the brink of insanity.
Yeah.
Better do a TikTok dance in front of him.
It's pretty weird.
Pretty weird.
And I'll bring it up again later because there's another thing that happens in this film that I think deserves a little bit of context, a little bit of reflection afterwards. But let's talk about the A plot. We'll come back to the B plot. The A plot involves Goku fighting Pikkon at the start. A lovely wee fight scene of Goku just beating up other people in the tournament, and then they start the fight with Janemba, who you called Jelly Bean Baby.
Well, at the beginning, it's like a big, I don't even know what you call that. He's like an evolution of Boo, isn't he?
Yeah, he's basically Giant Boo. And I think this is one of my favourite movie villains, Chonky Janemba. Being able to punch through portals, just anything that gives, as I've mentioned before, anything that gives Dragon Ball a reason to not be able to just go head to head, I think is a winner. And this is one of these, I love this fight scene where he's punching him through walls and stuff like that. I just think it's dead funny.
And he turns into a Digimon at one point where he's got his stomach cannon things.
Yeah.
What I will say, in all seriousness, I do think that there's a reason why people love Janemba so much, the red one and not the yellow one, but I feel as if at least he is unique in that way. Something that you mentioned last week about Majin Buu being quite naive and childlike, and that's what makes him dangerous. And that's exactly what it is here. That I don't even know what you call Janemba before he turns into Janemba. The yellow to the red. He doesn't really know so much these. I think he does to some degree, but he just wants to play and whatever, and he's trying to shoot him down. And as you said, it's quite refreshing that they don't just punch them really hard and that's it. End of the fight. And then of course you get Super Saiyan 3 3 again, which is really damn cool, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and he even mentions it. He's like, oh, the only other person that's made me do this so far is Majin Buu, so you're on a whole other level, which is a great setup to the rest of the film, the escalation of it all.
Man, Vegeta's raging in the background.
So he does turn up pretty shortly afterwards. We got Janemba's transformation first. Do you want to talk about this? Because we mentioned it last week. It makes him a lot less interesting.
Yeah, he turns a lot more humanoid. And don't get me wrong, I do think he looks cool. It's such a early 2000s thing, isn't it? Late 90s, early 2000s. The big horns and the big red sword and everything.
He's edgy.
Yeah, but it's so well done. It's so funny and so cool. Not to reference Dragon Ball Abridged too much, but you know, in the Broly film where Vegeta's constantly yelling, he's constantly yelling, oh my god, he's so cool. That is, I think, how people felt about Janemba, where they're like, oh, he's so cool. Look at this red devil man and whatever.
I think the whole he's so cool but it's so dumb is this entire film. I'm not going to lie. There's so many cool things in it.
Do you know what this whole film reminds me of? It's, you know that part in the Buu saga where Vegeta and Goku finally fight?
Yeah.
Throughout the whole arc, and this is something that someone brought up in a video once, and I cannot get it in my head anymore, but they basically said that the Buu saga is more or less the fan service arc.
Sure.
More in terms of, you've got Goku versus Vegeta, you've got the fusion, you've got Super Saiyan 3, you've got all of these really cool, iconic moments that are so ridiculous and over the top compared to what we've had before, but people still put them in because, oh, it'll look cool. And I feel as if, for the most part, for Goku and Vegeta's parts in this film, minus one part, which we will get on to, but I feel as if that is basically this whole film, or this part of the film. Oh, Janemba looks cool. Oh, give him a sword.
Make him turn into Lego.
Yeah, oh, that's so
that.
cool, though.
That's the sickest teleportation version ever.
Well, I mean, between that and I know jumping ahead here, but when he actually gets defeated and he punches Gogeta in the face and Gogeta just doesn't flinch and is like,
so good.
It is so cool. I have to say, there's a lot of moments, I'm going to be honest, this film is ridiculous as hell, but it's so cool when it wants to be. But as you said, you know, you've got the fight between Vegeta, Goku and Janemba, and then they do the fusion dance, which is really weird that Vegeta doesn't, although I suppose he wouldn't have been there.
Again, I get that. This is again, I mentioned they don't want to explain things because it's a shonen, but Vegeta vaguely offhand goes, oh, by the way, it's absolutely awful being dead. I'm not like you. And it's a really poignant moment, and then they just kind of go, don't worry about it. It's because they don't have time to talk about it in this 50-minute film, so let's move on real quick.
Yeah, we've got to get to the B plot quickly.
Yeah.
Although I have to admit, I do love the gag with Shenron being summoned. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. So just to recap the listeners, there's a scene where Gohan summons Shenron and says, you know, oh, can you wish everybody back to hell and the rightful places? And initially he's like, okie dokie, no problem. And then he's like, yeah, the barn doors are kind of opened. So even if I put them back, they would still come out. And I'm like, oh, damn, that sucks. And nobody makes a wish. And it is so damn funny. I could not stop laughing. And especially there's like an almost after credit scene when he's like, does anyone want to make a wish? Like, nobody's made a wish. I thought, oh, that's funny. But as I said, this film, when it wants to be cool, is really, really damn cool. But something I always found weird, and it wasn't until I rewatched this, because initially I thought there was a difference in art style, see, between Hell and just our world, the land of the living, as it were. But they only do that for some scenes. I always thought that the land of the living, that they had thicker outlines, and don't get me wrong, I really like the animation, but there's no real consistency to it.
No, and I wonder if it's something to do with the animation in Hell's so busy with all the things floating around, and I wonder if that was more of a necessity rather than a choice, and then at that point they just committed to so much of it. I don't know. I'd love to know the story behind it. It does feel like at some points it looks more like Dragon Ball, the stuff on Earth, and then other times it looks totally different.
Because the weird thing is, it never happens when Goku and Vegeta are fighting Janemba. It never once happens with that, but it's more with Goten and Trunks, and there's even one bit where a guy sees his dead wife come back from the grave. And again, I don't think the Japanese dub probably does this, but I found it funny, the English dub, where the dead wife comes up and she's like, oh my God, you've got old. And he's like, it's been 60 years, give me a break. Or something, which I thought was quite funny.
That animation looks something like straight out of Dragon Ball, that scene in particular.
Yeah.
It looks so like that kind of Dragon Ball style.
What I will say, for the most part, is that the film struggles to maintain a tone, doesn't it?
It's kind of what I was going to bring it up, was like the next part of the plot. So they have the argument about fusing, and then they fuse, and this is the part of the film where I was texting you because I was like, I don't know if I can do the rest of this film. So they transform into, they make up some different names for it. Is it Viku?
Viku, yeah.
But basically, they mess up the fusion dance and we get fat fusion. And so this is happening at the same time as the B plot's kind of reaching its crux. So the B plot of this film, to bring it up, is Goten and Trunks are fighting the zombies and they come across the dictator and his army. This is like a comedy bit, but it's not funny. There's no gags, there's no payoff. The joke is, haha, isn't this funny that the dictator's here? The absurdity of it is kind of funny for like the first 10 seconds, and then it keeps going and it keeps going.
Yeah.
And it keeps going, and it's swinging between that and this Veku fight, which is, again, the absurdity of this fat person fighting Janemba's funny for the first 10 seconds, and then it keeps going, and that keeps going. And I'd love to know how much of the runtime of this 50-minute movie was split between those two bits, because it is absurd how long they took.
Because the thing about Dragon Ball, and especially Dragon Ball Z, is just how different the tone can be. Because in Dragon Ball, the original show, you definitely see more of, although it's fantasy, and when you get the serious moments, they really get serious, but for the most part, it is like a light-hearted adventure kind of comedy in times. Well, maybe not comedy, but you know, it's bordering, it's teetering on
there's
that.
funny moments.
Yeah, but then for Z, although they do have funny moments, they definitely try to rein it in a lot more and try to make you think, oh, we have to be really serious because we've got Frieza, we've got Cell, we've got Majin Buu, you know, although Majin Buu's a bit silly, but you know, you've got all these characters that posed a real threat, and then GT's a whole bag of worms in that regard, where they did not get a consistent tone at all. But with this film, as you said, you know, you've got a serious plot where, and again, you know, I'm not coming in to say I demand a serious plot for this, because I'm just here for the punchy. And this film, I'm here for the fights, you know, the gorgeous animation at times. I'm not here for fat Viku and the dictator. That's the thing that really irritates me about the inclusion of the dictator, for obvious reasons. List any reason, common sense reason why it was a bad idea, but Frieza's right there.
Yeah.
You know, Frieza, all things considered, in his own right, is a terrible dictator. And you see all the other characters that they could have pulled out for this particular role, and they bring out him.
This movie has all the bits. You just need to swap it around. The dictator is the one joke, the one gag character at the start, and then whether you want to do Frieza or just some other henchman that you've made up, whatever. But like, this film's so absurdly paced, in that the way typically a film is kind of done is like the B plot and the A plot, both the characters look like they're in parallel at the same time. That's kind of how every film ever works, right?
Yeah.
I'm not being weird here, but the moments before the transformation into Gogeta, there's no peril, there's no reason to keep checking in with Goten and Trunks at all. Like, they're never in any doubt, there's never any kind of interest in what they're actually up to. It's just them dodging tank bullets for like 10 minutes. It's so bizarre, so strange. I don't understand. And then to make it to make it that little more annoying, for some reason when the A plot gets resolved, the B plot then gets resolved, so they get like the headline slot. It's so weird. I don't understand it.
Yeah, no, I don't get it. Keep in mind that you've also got 5 minutes of Videl breaking Chi-Chi's dishes.
That's fine. A bit of slice of life at the start's fine to context, I think. At least that's it right at the start, you know what I mean?
I mean, it is until you realise the payoff is Goten and Trunks acting like we you-know-what's towards them at the end, and be like, oh, they're kissing, oh. And I'm like, really?
I don't mind that as much, because at least the slice of life stuff sets the context of either side of the film. So what they're up to at the start, what they're up to the end, it's what they get up to in the actual film that annoys me.
No, it's just such a bizarre one, because don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and pretend, you know, that all of the films are like at a high standard of writing or whatever, but this one just baffles me. This genuinely, as you said, a lot of time is dedicated towards Viku, through, and a lot of time is dedicated towards the dictator, of which, as I said before, it was the reason that a lot of countries, in particular, of course, Germany, France, I think Israel as well, for obvious reasons, they censored the film with those bits. You wouldn't really miss anything if you cut that out the film, because it seems as if, and maybe it's just me getting older, so I'm valuing my time more, but if there's one thing I hate in a film is when they waste my time, especially when it comes to plots like this, because see, in all honesty, if you cut that plot out altogether, I mean, don't get me wrong, you'd have a 10-minute film, but you wouldn't really have a film. There's no substance to this film. I mean, at least, what I will say is, at least with the Wrath of the Dragon?
That's the Dragon, yeah.
Final one, I would say that's probably one of the better ones, purely because there's a plot that's kind of moving along, there's stuff happening in the background that you're like, oh, what's going to happen and things. But with this one, it feels, as you said, it feels more like an inflated TV special.
Yeah, so when we were chatting about what film to review, and I was saying, I'm kind of hoping it isn't Broly, because the plot of Broly's paper thin, and because it is just they punch and kick, and that's a 50-minute film as well. But at least that's kind of imminent danger to everyone, and the whole plot's geared towards what's going on. It's so weird that they've had so little time in this film, and they spend so much of it not doing the film, they're not doing the actual plot. But with all that said, we do eventually reach the climax of the film, a 90-second fight scene, and it is the best 90 seconds of TV. So good. We finally get Gogeta.
I was so shocked. I think I messaged you.
You did.
Yeah, and I was like, how is this only 90 seconds? It is one of the most iconic, at least before Super did it, and I know that was more Vegito, but it was absolutely crazy how even after this film, people were still talking about Gogeta, they were still doing fan art, fan animation.
He's been in every game since. Like one of those popular characters ever.
All for 90 seconds of the runtime. I mean, the Dictator and Viku got more screen time than Gogeta, and yet Gogeta's the one that came out on top. And I'm not gonna lie, Gogeta really is cool.
Yeah.
The only sad thing is they really spoil it because they cut back to the surface, and it's like, yeah, Goten and Trunks fuse together to become Gotenks, and it's like,
Also saying the really weird line, I don't know if this is like a dub specific thing, but they say something along the lines of like, oh, our dad's just fused, we should do it too. And it's like, is that like a key sensing thing that you can sense into hell? That was baffling to me, but you know the way I was like, everything else in this film makes so little sense, I'm fine to just pass on that.
Maybe it's like, and I'm sure there's a Dragon Ball fan out there who'll be able to explain, but maybe it's the barrier between hell and whatever. But
sure.
They never explain it. They also don't explain why the Dictator fawns over them having blue eyes and blonde hair.
Except they don't even have blue eyes, but that's a whole other thing.
Do you know what's actually really weird about that line as well? That's a dub line. That's not in the sub. I can't remember the specific line, but the sub, I'm sure, says, oh, they're so strong or something like that. But that's not in the original Japanese. So
weird.
Someone had to translate that and think, what would the Dictator say about Super Saiyan? You know those ridiculous, what would you call them? You know, death battles where it's like, Superman versus Goku or whatever. Was this someone's personal crossover episode? This film is like the gold rush of America, right? And bear with me here.
I'm loving to hear as it goes.
Because, right, you know how they had the big pans and things and they were like washing it in the river trying to find the nuggets of gold, right? There are nuggets of gold in this film, right? You've got Janemba before and after his weight loss journey. Proud of you, King. You know, you've got Janemba, you've got Gogeta, that is really, really cool. You've got some genuinely impressive animation in this film, despite what I was saying before, even the bits with the Dictator, as much as I hate that as a concept, the animation is on point. And I'm just trying to think of what else. There are really good moments.
Yeah, Pycon gets to fight Janemba as well. That's cool as well. He's got some great stuff.
I was going to say, does Pycon fight Janemba longer than Gogeta?
Probably. I do want to talk real quick about Gogeta's special move in this. I don't understand it in the context of Dragon Ball, so I'm just going to explain how I see it. But basically, he makes an energy blast and crushes it down to like atomic level and throws it inside Janemba. It is unbelievable. It is so cool. That is the epitome for me of like, it's so dumb, but it's so cool. And then Janemba explodes from inside after failing to punch Gogeta in the face. Just, mwah. That is peak Dragon Ball stupidity. It's so, so good. Honestly, that scene almost makes watching the rest rest of the film worth it. Next time I'll just go on YouTube and just go straight to the fight scene, but it almost makes it worth it.
Now, if I remember, and this is me putting on my nerd glasses here, but if I remember correctly, I'm sure it's I can't even remember the name of it. It's something silly and over the top, like Starburst something. But it's like an energy blast that eradicates evil energy or something like that. It's so over the top, but I love it. I'm not going to lie. So that's why it destroys Janemba, but not the small office worker. It's actually pretty damn good, because I think they do something similar in the Broly film, and that's why he's surprised he doesn't incinerate Broly.
Bro was trying.
Aye, he was on his redemption arc, give him a break. But yeah, again, as I said, am I wrong in saying that this is like the gold rush of Dragon Ball films?
No, I like that analogy. I like that.
It's just a shame, because genuinely, would you recommend this film? See if you had to recommend a Dragon Ball film. That was quick.
I do want to quickly mention the plot of what happens after the Vegeta fight, just to kind of summarise why I wouldn't recommend this. So after he wins, they unfuse. Vegeta says, that was cool, see you later, disappears. He has a lot of trauma to get off. You know, he did a lot of things to talk about, but they don't address any of that, what that was like to fuse with Goku. Goku doesn't bring anything up. Nobody mentions anything about what happened on Earth. And the film wraps up in like a minute after the fight. It is brisk, going quickly back to Gotenks versus the Dictator, wraps up the plot, gets them all home, gag with Shenron, and it must, from beating Janemba to the end of the film, must be 2 minutes. It can't be any longer than that. It feels like an absolute breakneck. We have so many things to resolve, and I don't understand why. Why is it such a rush? So yeah, overall, I cannot recommend this film. Go on YouTube and watch the fight. Just if you can get the Gogeta Janemba fight scene, or any of the Goku fight scenes, really are worth it.
I'll do you one better. Go on to TikTok and watch it.
Yeah.
Because it's about the same length as a TikTok.
I thought you were going to say so you can get Subway Surfers playing at the same time. I can sit and watch Subway Surfers when the other stuff's going on.
No, Family Guy clips, please.
Oh, sorry, yeah. The guy making fence posts, whatever it is.
Or like those weird cake things.
Yeah. No, I can't recommend this film at all. I want to, because the Gogeta stuff's so cool, but I just can't recommend the rest of this film for everything else that's in it.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, because as you said, there is that emotional moment with Vegeta, as you said, where if he dies, although then again, so would Goku. If either of them die, then they're going to get erased from existence completely, which is an absolutely wild concept. And then at the very end, he's like, I'm not feeling so good, Kakarot.
Mr. Kakarot, I don't feel so good.
Tell me about your number. He's gone. And again, you would think King Yama would probably put in a good word
No.
with the powers that be, but nah. And I know it's non-canon and all of that, but I'm going to be honest, I think I'm in the same boat as you, though. I wouldn't recommend it. And I think purely for the Dictator.
Yeah.
Again, and this is a line that Andrew brought up in a previous episode when we were talking about anime tropes, that when you're recommending an anime to someone, you have to be very careful that it doesn't have one of the more risque tropes, as it were, because, and I quote, people will turn to you and say, is that what you're into? And of course, recommending Dragon Ball film, the only Dragon Ball film I had with the Dictator in it, not a good look, first and foremost. And I don't even think you can say it was like a cultural thing or not understanding. Surely someone on the animation team must have said this was a terrible idea.
It's just not even funny.
No, it's not.
I've seen culture things aside as if that's an easy thing to put aside, but even on the sheer concept alone, it's just not good. You know, even if you were to replace the Dictator with just someone else, you know, in a different character, like some kind of, who's like the assassin or someone like the Red Ribbon Army in the first.
Is it General Tao?
Something like that. Yeah. Even if you were to replace it with one of them, it still doesn't make the film good. This just makes it even worse, you know what I mean?
And that's the thing as well, because as you said, and it actually reminded me of when we went to see the second My Hero Academia film, and there's a scene where, and for the life of me I can't remember the names of the characters, so I apologise, but there's a scene where Deku's fighting the main villain with Kachan. They've got their Vegeta and Goku kind of moment where they're both fighting with one another. Cool. It really is amazing. But then on the flip side, you've got the rest of Class A fighting against the underlings and henchmen and things. It's really cool because each character has their own powers, has their own quirks, and they have to do some mental gymnastics, as it were, to think, okay, how are we going to defeat this guy? How are we going to defeat that guy? Both sides are in peril, and it's very very engaging to watch. I know a lot of Dragon Ball fans just screamed that I said My Hero Academia did something better than Dragon Ball, but
those two films, see the first two, I think the first two My Hero Academia films are some of the best anime films because they understand really succinctly what they're trying to achieve. And that, like you say, that they set out these plots. Both the films does really well where it's like the side characters and there's a B plot, but you have to resolve them, and they are also within the confines of the film interesting. And I just think they do a great job of it.
But yeah, you look at that set of films and you think, oh, there's stakes and everything. And I think that's why the older I've gotten, the more I kind of see the childish aspect of Dragon Ball. Like, I still love Dragon Ball. It'll always be an important anime to me, but there's not as many consequences to it, especially with the whole death thing where you can wish people back with the Dragon Balls and whatnot. So yeah, that kind of lack of consequence there, and especially for the films, because the films are non-canon, so obviously they're not going to kill people off, and it's the same with My Hero Academia. But even then you think something's going to go horribly wrong here. Again, it's the same with Dragon Ball. You feel as if they're just resetting the status quo, and it's not engaging, because as soon as you get to the dictator, and I know I've gone on about this character, I hate it so much, because the thing is, you've gone from releasing Frieza and all these other nasty, gribbly old characters, and when you're looking in the background, as I said, you've got some very formidable people, and Gohan just punches him straight in the gut and he blows up, and then Vidal's like clapping going, oh, well done, no, oh my god, you blew up that guy with a fist. The thing about the dictator is that, again, other than the fact that they're trying to bring real world events in as a joke, it's the fact that we've known that guns and bullets and things don't really affect the characters, let's face it, or as much as they used to.
Goten and Trunks are joking about it while being shot at.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't go from, Vegeta and Goku, you're literally fighting for their lives or afterlives, versus them getting shot at by cartoony tanks. Honestly, when they came up, I was like, oh god, here we go again. Then you get back to the Vegeta stuff, and I genuinely forgot about Viku. I genuinely remembered that the fusion went wrong, but I couldn't remember what happened until he popped up, and I was like, oh no. It is a very Toriyama-esque thing. No, I wouldn't recommend this film, I'm going to be honest. I know that was a long way to say it, but I feel as if out of all the films, if I was going to recommend something, maybe Wrath of the Dragon, or I don't know. I'd really struggle to recommend a Dragon Ball film. Well, at least Dragon Ball Z film. Like, would you say you're in the same boat?
Yeah, I think maybe World's Strongest would be one that's got its own plot. I think Broly's pretty inoffensive, and it's just in and out. And yeah, Wrath of the Dragon's like an actual film. The ones after that, like Resurrection of F, are much better because they're sort of contained plots. But yeah, I think in general it's hard to recommend any of the films.
I mean, you know that the films are not canon when, especially in Wrath of the Dragon, where they have Super Saiyan 3 winning a fight.
I messaged you that during this film, I think. Is Super Saiyan 3 ever won a fight?
Yeah, literally, as far as I remember, other than the Boo fight, but that technically doesn't count, because he punches him around and then he pieces out, which is just, the biggest anime blue balls ever. But, yeah, no, I think that's the only film he wins. Genuinely. Yeah, good for him. But I think that's the perfect place to leave it. So, how would you rate this film out of 7 Dragon Balls, let's say?
It's hard to give it a direct rating, because I'm going to go right now, 3.5. Because, the stuff that's good, if it's just Goku, Vegeta, and Janemba, it's like a 6. If it's just the stuff with Trunks on Earth, it's a 1. So it's 3.5. That's what I'm going for.
I can't disagree with that, because Gogeta is so cool that he elevates the film for 90 seconds. That's how powerful his character was. The fact that you had so many pictures of him online at the time. Yeah, I would say it was average, to be fair. Again, I don't know if it's the worst one I've seen, but definitely has some questionable choices, for sure. And maybe one day I'll go through every single film and then rank them.
Yeah, tier ranking.
Oh, that'd be such a good episode. But that, of course, is for another episode. So, Martin, thank you so much, as always, for joining me in the second episode of Dragon Ball Month.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk about a very weird film.
As always, where can these lovely Pandalorian listeners find your content?
I am all over social media. You just have to look up Martin MacAlistair, but my main place is Instagram. Also, if you are around the Glasgow or wider Scotland area, you might even get a chance to see me wrestle. So keep an eye out. I'd love to see you in person. But that's all for me.
And as always, if you want more episodes of Dragon Ball Month, as well as more episodes from ourselves, then you can catch us on our website, chatsunami.com, as well as all good podcast providers. I also want to thank our Pandalorian patrons, Robotic Battle Toaster and Sonia. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And if you would like early access, bloopers, exclusive, juicy content that you can't see anywhere else, please feel free to check us out at our Patreon, patreon.com/chatsunami. But until next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay hydrated.
With their powers combined and their shirt relatively intact, Satsunami and Martin have fused together to become the ultimate warrior. But will they be able to find a good name for their combined alter ego? Or will they spend the rest of the next episode fighting with themselves? Find out on the next exciting episode of Chatsunami Z.